Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Survive and Thrive Wednesday night, uh, our weekly webcast talking with experts and community leaders about how we can care for ourselves, care for each other, and know what's happening in our community as we travel through this time of pandemic together. And you can see previous interviews that we've had on the Glendale City Church YouTube page. We've had interviews um, with epidemiologists, with psychologists, and a number of other experts, including one of our city council persons. Uh, Feel free to take advantage of those resources and hear what they've shared about what's happening right now and how we can live through it well. Tonight, I'm pleased to have three nonprofit directors who do their work, a significant part of their work, if not all of their work, within the city of Glendale. And really anxious to hear from them about what's been happening, how they've had to adjust to the realities of the pandemic and continue to do their work. And so we'll be hearing from each of them in just a moment. As people come online and join the conference, we're going to keep you muted, but we want your questions to be asked. And so you can use the chat feature. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a button that says chat. Just click on that and a window will open either on the right of your screen or it will pop out as a separate window. And you can type your question there. And then if I see your question, I will ask that of one or all of our guests with us tonight. So it's my privilege to introduce to you our three guests tonight. First is Dave Ferguson, who is the director of Caesura Youth Orchestra, and which provides after-school instrumental training for students in Glendale Unified School District elementary schools. And that organization has been going for 5 years now, and we're glad to have him with us. We're also pleased to have Albert Hernandez, who is the executive director of Family Promise of the Verdugos, that does the work of rehousing first-time homeless families, as well as working with the cities of Glendale and Burbank in providing additional housing support and services to families in those communities. And also pleased to welcome Tara Peterson, who is the executive director of YWCA Glendale, and who has been here for a number of years and has done great work through the YWCA in our community. And thank you to all of you for joining us and sharing your experience with us. The first question I'm going to throw out to each of you, and I'll let Tara start, and then Albert, you can follow, and then Dave, is talk about how the pandemic has affected your normal operations as an organization. What have you had to adjust in order to continue? What things maybe have you had to put on hold? How has COVID affected your ability to do your work in the community?
Great. Thank you so much, Todd. And thank you all for being here. I feel honored and privileged to be here today to kind of share what's happening with the YWCA and how we are, navigating this very challenging and difficult time. And so just like all of you, we've been super laser focused on this pandemic and been working to figure out new ways of doing things. But the YWCA Glendale, we are a provider of emergency and social services for victims of domestic violence and their children. And a big part of the work that we do is maintaining both the health and safety of those people who seek our services. And so now that, with the stay-at-home order, we've had to close down our Lexington facility, which is where is really one of the first point of access for women and children that are seeking safety and support. And so by not having that availability for people to drop in if they need something or if they're in crisis, or being able just to meet and get the emotional support that they need from their case managers has definitely been challenging. We've been able to move those services, providing therapy online, as well as doing support groups through Zoom. But that does limit the amount of people we're reaching and people ability to participate. Most of the people we serve are low income, and some of them still live with their abusers. And so that creates additional barriers for them. They sometimes have to call us on their way to the store when they're by themselves. Like they can't access the phones when they're at home because it's not going to be safe for them. And so those are some of the challenges that we're facing. Our emergency shelter, which we also operate in the city of Glendale, it's an undisclosed location. We provide 24-hour shelter for women and children, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and that's still operating. Unfortunately, we can't operate at capacity due to some of the guidelines with the public health regarding how we social distance in a congregate area, right? And so, we no longer can put multiple families in one room. We have to have one room that's designated specifically just in case somebody is exposed to COVID-19. And so that has limited our ability to bring in additional women and children during this time of crisis. And on the flip side of that, women are staying longer in our shelter because they either can't get a job to move out of shelter, and other things as well. And so we've been trying to really address those issues collectively, and by providing other resources such as we have a weekly food pickup, so they can come every week to pick up a bag of groceries from our center. That's probably the biggest thing and the newest thing and the biggest thing we've done to really help them with some of the economic impact that they're facing.
Okay, thank you for that. Albert, talk about what's happening at Family Promise right now.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Todd said, I'm Albert Hernandez. I'm the director over at Family Promise with the Verdugos. And, our organization, we run multiple programs. We run about 6 different types of programs, from our core program, which is a 90-day shelter, to 3 different types of rapid rehousing, focused on different demographics of the homeless population. And then we also provide a resource center that we operate under Communitas. And I'll tell you, in the last, I think we're in week 5 of this crisis, and I'm going to be very transparent with you. I cannot tell you. I'd be lying if I would say that not every single program has been affected. The program that has been affected the most has been our 90-day shelter. That shelter program has been in operation for 10 years here in our community, and we rely heavily on our partners, who are congregations. The faith-based community is really the community that operates this program. Our families are sleeping over at these congregations. The parishioners are providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They provide volunteer activity. They volunteer. They do arts and crafts. They help out with tutoring. And because the churches have been closed for the last 5 weeks, it's made us change the model of our program. From housing families in churches for 10 years, we thought we had it down to a T. Now we've had to move our families actually into motels. And since we're placing them in motels, we've taken on a new expense, a line item that we never envisioned we'd have to take on, and that's motel nights. So that 90-day shelter has been definitely impacted in a challenging way, but I'll tell you, we're very fortunate. I think one thing that our community here in Glendale and even Burbank, our community members are very supportive. When there is a challenge or some sort of barrier, they rally behind the nonprofits, and they try to help out as much as possible. So the challenges we're facing are having to deal with new costs, new type of expenses, having to relocate families to motels. Let me tell you, our population, the majority of our population, if not all, are homeless families. And I'll tell you, in 2019, over 80% of our families have been a single parent household. So imagine being a single parent with 1 or 2 children and experiencing homelessness. Now, on top of those challenges, now you're living in a motel, and on top of that, you're being isolated. You have no interaction with the case managers. And believe it or not, when you look at homeless services, it's the case managers' support and intensive counseling that really helps these families become motivated and get back on their feet. So not having that face-to-face interaction or being there to provide advice or even prayer, I think it's presented its challenges to the families. So we've definitely had to adapt and identify new ways to communicate with our families, whether it's video conferencing, text messaging, phone calls. It's been a roller coaster these last 5 weeks, but I don't want you to think it's all negative. Our community, we're very fortunate to be in a community where people rally behind us and are there to provide support. So the program has been impacted. We had a big event scheduled about a month ago, a little over a month ago. I think the second week of the pandemic, and that gala, our sixth annual gala, I believe it is. That was our biggest source of revenue for the year. So having to postpone that and deal with not having that revenue that we budgeted, and not knowing if the tentative date is even going to become a reality, it does cause some concerns from an executive position and a board level as well. So I think the challenges with the organization right now, in addition to what I've said, is really just the uncertainty of what's happening. Our fiscal year starts July 1st. How do you budget for the next fiscal year when you really don't know what to expect, when things are changing constantly? So that's a little bit where we're at, and I'll share some more positive things later on, though.
Okay. No, thanks, Albert. Appreciate that. Dave, what's happening with Caesura Youth Orchestra?
Well, it's just been a total chaos in the last few weeks, because we meet with kids at 2 different schools, and each of the schools have several programs. We have a recorder class, we have a string class, and we have a woodwind class at each of those schools. And so up until a month ago, I was bouncing back and forth between 2 different schools every day of the week. 5 days a week we had a class. So it meant that we had lots of things happening with kids, lots of personal contacts with the kids. And suddenly, as we moved into spring break, we didn't have any idea what was going to happen. And coming, at the end of spring break, we suddenly found out that some of the kids had left their instruments at the school and expected to be back to pick the instruments up when they got back from spring break. So I had to make arrangements with the schools to pick up some of those instruments, make deliveries to the kids so they'd have their instruments, so we could try and have them continue doing their work. And it just threw a lot of chaos into things. But we've moved to trying to do online classes, which is a challenge in its own, because there are no platforms that allow for music to be happening at the same time. All of the platforms like Zoom or WebEx or anything have a few second delay between each person that speaks. And so that means when we try and have kids play together, they're a couple of seconds apart. They can never play exactly together. And if the teacher tries to count them in and say, okay, I'm going to count, and after beat 4, you're going to come in. They come in at beat 6 because it's not possible for them to do that with the current technology that's out there. So that's created a whole nother way to try and figure out what to do. I'm working with people from National El Sistema headquarters, and every teacher across the country is facing the same kind of dilemma. There is no platform that allows this sort of thing. So we're either having the kids try and record something and send it to the teachers so we can hear what they're doing, or we try and have them play one at a time, and the other kids are just on mute playing the same kind of thing, but we're not listening to them because we can only have one at a time. And even then, the sound kind of comes and goes a little bit on some of the different instrument kinds of things that we have. Because most of these are designed for voices, they're not designed for the dynamic range that you would see with an instrument. So that's created some additional challenges as well to try and keep everything moving along. And you know, the teachers have been wonderful. We ran into one day where I found out that one of our classes that has 18 kids supposed to coming to it, and we have not ever had all of the kids in attendance. It's usually just a few at a time that come, but it kind of rotates as well. And we've had one of the days where we had a group of students that were supposed to be there. I found out that the teacher had scheduled a meeting for all of the students in her third grade class that same time. So I contacted her and she said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were doing this. I'll switch my class." So that was really neat that the teacher was so interested in what was happening that she was moving her entire third grade class meeting to a different time so that it didn't conflict with what we were trying to do with the kids. So, you know, lots of different things and trying to learn all kinds of new technologies and all that. You know, it's not just a matter of doing something where you're talking one-on-one with people, but trying to do things with third and fourth grade kids who are trying to figure out the technology as well. And fortunately, the school district has worked to try and make sure that all the kids in Glendale School District have internet connection, and that makes it easier for us to be able to use some of these things to work with them. But you know, trying to figure out what happens with all of that. You know, we are in our 6th year, and who would have known that after this period of time we would have come to the end of a year and had this kind of challenge happening to us. We were scheduled to be part of the Glendale Taste Walk on May 6th for our students to be performing at the corner of Brandon Broadway, and we would have had 40 kids all performing there to show people in the community what's happening with our kids and everything. But you know, that of course is not going to be anything that happens. And that's been rescheduled to sometime in September, but who knows whether by the time school starts we'll be able to put things together quickly enough to be able to even do something with them at this point. So that's kind of where we're at in that particular part of your question.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what this is, you know, what this reveals about the work that each of you are doing is you have great wisdom and intellect to share. You have great resources, but there's just nothing that can replace being together with the people you're serving. You
Right.
lose so much, and in the different ways that you each described, there is just so much that you lose without being able to be present with people, both in accomplishing your tasks, but also the intangible love and support and care that comes through just from being in the same space. There, even with a screen looking at somebody, we lose so much of that human to human connection. So
That's really true. You know, with the kids, it means so much. You know, I have kids on a regular basis. One boy that comes up to me, you know, every couple of weeks and say, "Can I get a hug?" You know, and so you know, I'm very careful about touching and that sort of thing. But when we're right in the middle of a classroom with a whole bunch of kids, you know, it's not something that's going to be misinterpreted when one kid comes and does something like that. But it shows the impact that the kids have and that we're able to have on their lives.
yeah, absolutely. Well, the next question I want to shift to with each of you and hear from you about is how has this affected you and your team, your staff, and your volunteers who have been able to regularly work with you? What impact have you seen? Have you had to lay some people off? Have you had members of your team get sick? And then what, as you're keeping in touch with your team, and also I'm interested for you personally as the leaders of your organization, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What in the midst of giving care to others, where are you at? And so Dave, I'll let you start by briefly sharing. You have the smallest organization as far as as far as staff goes, but nevertheless, I know there's still an impact. And then we'll go from there to Albert and then to Tara.
Yeah, during the first couple of weeks when all of this happened, I found I just needed to have a lot of extra sleep. There was the stress and the anxiety of just all of this coming at me was just taking a toll. And so I just needed to get a lot more rest than normal just to be able to feel like I was functioning at a normal level. So that's one of the things. My staff has been great. They've jumped in to try and figure out how to make everything work. They're figuring out how to do things on their computers so that they can do Google Classroom and send out assignments for kids, as well as do things in the class when we meet with them. And because of the fact that what we're doing, we're having one day, a 1 hour class instead of an hour or an hour and a half class twice a week. We're meeting just one day a week on the computer with Zoom or WebEx to try and see what we can do with each of the students. So that's been a challenge, just to try and keep all of that going for the staff. Our teachers are really amazing people, and I really give them a lot of credit for all the things that they're doing. But this week we had one of our students, one of our teachers, who has the job with us is not his only job. He works for a university and with a school district, but because of all of the things that have been happening with all of this, he has lost so much income that he had to move back to Iowa to be home with his parents instead of trying to maintain an apartment here in Los Angeles. Fortunately, that means that since we're doing things online, he's still going to be able to do the same classes from another remote location. And the kids probably won't know any different, because he'll be still working with them on the computer. But it's had an impact that way. And I know that other people, at least one other teacher has had to move home, live with parents to try and make ends meet at this point in time as well. So it's had a definite impact on what we're able to do and trying to keep everything going.
Thank you. Albert, how about you?
So I think for me personally, I was just sharing with one of my past board members, I think yesterday over a phone call. I'm coming to the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I feel like a lot of my work can be done from home, but I go to the office because there's things that I need to take care of there, whether it's deposits, checking the mail, whatever it is. But I also feel like I can accomplish more when I'm at work. I've got a 7-year-old running around and she needs help. And now that academics are now online, it's not easy for her to log in and download and print and upload. It's a lot. So I try to go to the office as much as possible, at least 3 times a week, so that I can focus on my work. And I think it's important. I mean, there's so much going on right now that as Dave said, it's a very stressful time right now, and I think any ED can tell you that running a nonprofit is already stressful as it is, and I think right now we're all dealing with challenges. But I was sharing with a friend of mine yesterday, and I told her, I said, it's kind of lonely too. I mean, yes, I'm a leader of an organization, but I feel like I feel comfortable sharing with you all that sometimes it is lonely. Sometimes I am a little stressed out. I'm dealing anxiety and whatnot. And something like this, being on this panel with such great people, I appreciate these kind of interactions, because I think when you're so focused on your job, there's so much going on in your mind. But other than that, I'm well. My family's well. As far as my staff, we're a team of 9. The second week 2 of this crisis, we all started working from home, and my team is busier than ever. busier than ever, just trying to maintain communication with our families that are living in motels or living in rapid rehousing. One of the staff said in our weekly Zoom conference call that they felt like they've been stronger at communicating because they need to talk more often and share their ideas and bounce ideas off one another. So they feel like this has actually brought them closer. So we might do this permanently, everyone. But they're really doing a stellar job. They're all well, they're all healthy. They continue working from home until we see what happens. The third population that you're asking this question about are volunteers. I would say we've lost every volunteer. And this is an organization that has about 200 to 250 volunteers that are active. They're not volunteers that do one day, one project a year. They're active volunteers, whether they're donating or sleeping over with their families at churches or breaking bread with families, or even volunteering at our day center where our headquarters are. None of them are really comfortable right now to be hands-on, obviously because of the stay-at-home order. But in addition, if you look at the Family Promise volunteer population, many of them are retired. The first day, they all said, it's not healthy. We're staying at home. We are part of that 65 and older population that is being recommended that we stay at home. So we've lost quite a bit of volunteers. And what that means is some of the work has increased for staff. But again, it's a challenge that we're willing to take on, and a challenge that we've been successful at for these last five weeks. I'm very proud to tell you. I'm very proud to tell you that we have not laid off a single employee. Nobody's hours have been reduced. And I think that is so important that we don't reduce anyone's hours or lay anyone off. And I'll tell you why. I think that's important because we are an organization that is providing housing, intensive case management for families that are in dire need. I cannot imagine my board and the administration ever approving, to reduce hours, because we need to set that example with our staff. I would never want to put our staff in a predicament where they would need some sort of support. Some of these intensive case management workshops and whatnot. So we're going to continue operating at full capacity. And thank goodness everyone is doing well, everyone's strong, and we're going to keep plugging along here.
So thank you guys both for that great information. It's while Albert is talking about not reducing hours and how important it is, I have my son is actually in the background. He actually works for the YWCA Glendale. He's privileged enough, but I had to reduce his hours. But luckily enough, he's in a good position. But unfortunately, we have 32 employees. And this is probably one of the only times where I feel really kind of happy that we are 68% government funded. Before all this happened, we were talking about how we need to, find other ways to generate income and not be so dependent on the government. This is a time where I'm really grateful that we are 68% government funded, because that's the one thing that's still operating, and we're some of our payments are delayed. So cash flow is a constant issue for us because we are about a $2.7 million organization. We have a lot of expenses that go out every month. And so cash flow is a constant issue. And so we made a strategic decision early on, given the fact that our facility is closed. Our facilities department is probably the most impacted, but also with our shelter advocates, we made a decision that because we're reducing the number of people in shelter, we don't necessarily need to have 3 shelter advocates on site at one time. And so we made a decision to do across the board about a 10% cut to those positions in order to keep them having benefits, being able to get them, knowing that hopefully as soon as this is over, we'll be able to get them back up to full time. But we went ahead and made that strategic decision just in order to help us kind of manage the cash flow issues that we can come up against, given our type of funding structure. But the staff overwhelmingly, I get emotional when I think about my staff. And I had a staff meeting the other day and I actually cried on the staff meeting because I feel as leaders, we have all the information, right? We know how financially strong our organization is. We know how many days of cash on hand we have. We know how our reserves, how long we can keep operating. If we were not to get another dime today, I know that I can keep things going for however long. And having that information as a leader and wanting to find a way to be transparent with your staff, but not overpromise, right? Because you never know, and you don't want to create that environment. And it's a challenge for me, and it makes me feel emotional because I know that they are all seeing what's happening in the news. Many of their partners have been laid off, their parents have been laid off. So they're seeing this happen. And so for them, even though I am letting them know, like, YWCA, we have a 90-year history, and the YWCA has survived so many things. We are going to survive this. That's not enough for them, right? That's not enough for them. And because what they're seeing happening in the community, and many of them are now the sole breadwinners in their families. And they have increased expenses because they have to support their spouse that was laid off, or their mother, and they're living with their parents, and their parents were impacted financially by this. And so they are they're dependent on even more so financially. And so we try to make sure that we're able to support all of our staff, whether that's through, if they need food, we have food donations. You are more than welcome to help yourself to a bag of groceries, no questions asked. Making sure we're reaching out to them regarding their own personal wellness, and figuring out ways that they can find time to take for themselves, even if they're working from home or if they're working in the shelter. It's so critical that they take care of themselves. And so we're constantly talking about self-care and wellness. I think people are just have a lot of anxiety of not knowing, and that brings fear. And I'm just trying to do my best to kind of bring that fear down. And I kind of failed because I was crying about the call, but I just know that I kind of try to put myself in their shoes. And if I wasn't in a leadership position where I have access to all this information, how would I feel? And because I've been in their shoes, I've been an advocate, I've been in the front line, I've done the work, and so we just really do our best. I have a great leadership team, management team that supports me and supports them. We also have 6 college interns that are working to get their hours so they can get their degrees, their family therapy degrees, and they have to get these number of hours in order to graduate. And so trying to make sure that we're able to help them get their hours, still do the work, and be able to graduate has definitely been something that has been a concern for them as well. And then not knowing where their future is going to go, right? And so I think those are some of the things that I'm seeing with my staff. And for me, I think that I definitely find myself doing a lot of work, a lot of thinking around strategy. And I think the biggest thing, not just dealing with crisis, but after the crisis, the recovery. I'm starting to think about how can we begin, what do we need to do as an organization so that we can be support when it's recovery time? Because even when the stay-at-home order is lifted, people are still going to be struggling and having, to get back into the workforce. What are things that we can now bring new to the community to add value and support helping people recover faster? And so I'm constantly thinking about what we can do differently. So I spend a lot of time just thinking and trying to come up with ideas and plans for recovery. I think the other thing, we actually, I think it was week 2 of when we allowed our staff to go home, we had an employee that was exposed to COVID-19, and luckily she did not test positive. She was able to get a test, and this was really early on. We weren't even sure, but she was around our shelter, and so we had to actually quarantine our entire shelter for a week, and we had to have one staff person there for 24-hour shift. And so that was a lot for that person. And so And so just trying to be mindful that, you know, people are going to need to take time off, allowing them for taking, if they don't have vacation time, they don't have sick time, we are allowing them to take extended sick time, extended vacation time, so that they can be ready to go when it's time to get back to work. We need them, and they are valuable to our organization. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is just making sure and they understand that they're valued. And it's so hard to do remotely, right? And so just trying to find different ways to let them know that they're valued, whether it's through giving them gift cards or, you know, bringing them together for a chat, or encouraging them to do virtual, you know, Zoom meetings with themselves and not their supervisors. So those are some things that we've been trying to do just to keep our staff feeling whole.
Thank you for that. I'm yeah, I think about what you guys are doing, and I think it was Albert who said, you know, running nonprofits in normal times is I don't, I'd like to ask every nonprofit director in America, are you making enough money for the amount of work you're putting in? And there would be nobody except maybe at the highest, you know, global type of nonprofit where they feel like they're making enough money for what they do. And then to what you guys are carrying on, and then not only are you needing to care for your program participants, but also then now you've really got to think in a more compassionate way towards staff and towards yourself. And it's like this whole extra expansion of compassion that you're actually giving out during this time. So I really appreciate your honesty, all three of you sharing kind of where you're at and the struggle and what you're facing and how you're doing your best to work through it. But I also want to hear a little bit about the positive moments you've seen through this time, where maybe you've recognized, maybe in a new way, how important the work is that your organization is doing, or somehow with all the limitations of technology, maybe you stumbled upon something with technology that, like Albert I think mentioned earlier, that actually ends up being something that this is something we actually will use going forward, that'll actually enhance what we do. So let's start this time. And while I'm doing that, I see there's one question come up in our chat feature. After we go around on this question, we'll start bringing in your questions. So if anybody else has a question you want to ask of our directors, please type it there and we'll go to those next. But Albert, share a couple, one or two good stories about where you've seen things actually work during this time.
You got it. Thanks, Todd. So I'll share two stories. You know, when we transitioned from closing our shelter and moving families to motels, you know, that was a tough decision, and it was a scary situation for the families who were living in our shelter. You know, they were concerned about their caseworkers and how often they would get to interact with them. They were worried about being alone in motels. And all of that made sense. One family in particular, a single mom of a toddler who was living in our shelter and transitioned to our motel program. Her name was Joycey, and she was, you know, we provided her food, we provided her support, and I'll tell you, after 2 weeks of living in motels, we actually, our team worked together and got this family into housing. I'll tell you right now, 5 weeks later after the crisis, my team has done a phenomenal job of actually housing 7 homeless families, which blows my mind. Not that they work miracles. I believe in them, but to be able to house 7 families during this crisis where so many things are uncertain, and to provide that sense of community and belonging and helping these families achieve their dream and giving them hope, I'm so proud of the team for being able to do that. And I attribute it not just to this, I attribute that because our staff is talented and they're so hardworking. But, you know, we also, miraculously enough, we actually had some landlords reach out to us and say, hey, we've got empty units. Are there any families that you think might be able to take on this lease? And I love the diversity of our programs, because we implement a rapid rehousing program which allows Family Promise to subsidize a portion of that rent. So we had families on the cusp and ready to transition. And when we had some landlords reach out and say, hey, what can we do? I mean, that speaks to the great work that our team at Family Promise is doing in cultivating those relationships with landlords over the years, that it's really kicking in right now. So that is a success in itself. And I'll share one last one. And I shared this with my board last Friday. You know, we helped a single mom and an 8-year-old son move into transitional housing. A little over a year ago, about 13 months ago exactly. And after that, after we moved the family in, that mom told us, Lanice, her name was, she said, I want to make sure that your caseworkers are working with me closely, because I do not want to use the 12 months that, you know, that I've been approved for. She wanted to move out as soon as possible. And it was because she wanted to better herself, but her comment was she wanted the next family who was facing so many barriers to come in and have the same opportunity that she did. I'll tell you, 5 months later, she actually increased her income so much that not only did she move out of that transitional unit, which we help operate, she actually moved up in her job, and they moved her to a different state, which was great. We were happy for her. Last Friday, we get a donation from her, a monetary donation from Lanice and her son. And the comment was, thank you for giving me hope and believing in me. And when we got that donation, I mean, Tara, I cried too. It's okay to cry, Tara. I'm telling you, I cried. I could not believe that she went out of her way to make a donation through all of what's going on in the world. It's not a Glendale issue. This is not a local, this is a global issue. And for her to show her support through that donation definitely made me remember and reminded me and my team why we do what we do. And you know, that donation was a sign of the cycle of homelessness that we're ending as a team, not just Family Promise, but through partnerships with the city of Glendale and the YWCA in a sense. Yeah, we're very fortunate to be in such a loving and strong community. And I thought those two stories would be great to share with you, because you know, we need some more good stories out there. You know, we're hearing so much negativity, and we need to remember that there are good things happening, and nonprofits are doing a heck of a job. They are working their bottoms off. They, you know, I think sometimes the nonprofits are the heart of the community that sometimes people don't really remember. You know, it's always what business will drive increase, you know, our you know, provide more funding for the community and whatnot. But nonprofits, I mean, it's hard work, but it's great work. And I'm so proud of Joycey, the 7 families we've housed, and I appreciated what Lanice did for us with that donation.
That's just fantastic, Albert. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's fantastic news. Dave, what's
I don't have a lot of stories to tell, but I do know that just having the kids, you know, one of the things that's been very moving is when we get the kids together for class, that they say, wow, it's so nice to see you. I haven't seen you for weeks. And the kids are so excited to see each other because they, you know, they're so distanced from everything and everybody right now. You know, I see them, you know, they're laying on their bed at home during class and talking to us, or sitting at a little desk at some part of their home. But, you know, they're totally isolated. And so just actually being able to be have communication and be in community with other kids that they really care about has been a great thing for them to be able to have that happen. And I know that they have things with their school and with some things with their classes, but it's amazing the kind of bonding that happens with the kids in the music class. They just I heard it said a number of years ago that the kids who are part of the music program, some other programs like ours, these kids end up being friends for the rest of their lives, but they may lose contact with a lot of other people in their class. But I'm seeing that sort of thing happening where the kids really feel close to each other because of the class that they work in very closely as they do their music together.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the interesting things that I found out in the work I do is how just by providing that space where people can see each other has become crucially important. Where you just open up a space where different people can come in and see the people they're used to seeing is so important. Those connections, just there's something you can tell yourself logically. Everybody's okay, but it's seeing them right, flesh and blood before you. It has such a powerful effect for children, obviously, and connecting with their teachers who they love, and then with each other, and then for us as adults. So,
and while this isn't directly related to Caesura, it relates to music. And with the programs that we have at the church, we're not able to do some of the music programs that we do on a regular basis, our noon concerts and our second Saturday concerts. But our noon concerts have moved to doing things virtually. And so they are recording things on Facebook Live, and then they go on to the YouTube channel of the church. And we lots of times will have 50, 75 people that come to a concert for our noon concerts. But with our concerts that we're doing virtually, we have 400 or 500 every time that watch those programs. So it's really expanded the opportunity for people to have a connection with the kinds of things that we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. Tara, how about you? Where have you seen what you do really impacting right now?
Yeah, I think I have, so I'll just share three really short stories. One is one of our participants, and I think, even though there's been some, regarding evictions, but sometimes our participants aren't communicated that they can't be evicted. And so sometimes they're still threatened that they're going to be evicted. And we had a participant that was threatened with a 3-day notice that she would be evicted during COVID-19. And we were able, our housing program was able to step in and to help pay her rent so she would not get evicted. And so I just want to share, she sent us this email. And she just said, "Good afternoon. I just want to thank you and YWCA for all your help. I was able to pay my rent with what you guys gave me and what the government gives me. I'm beyond blessed and grateful for your generosity. It's been very helpful. Because of you, I was able to have a roof over my head. My daughter and I are able to live under one roof and not be homeless. At this point, due to coronavirus, I'm still not able to participate in the Welfare to Work program, which really would be helpful. But I appreciate all the things that you all are doing. Please stay safe." And so that was really inspirational to hear that story. That if we weren't there to step in, even though the landlord technically can't evict her, she could be thinking that and would have probably left on her own and been homeless in fear that she was going to be evicted. And so we were able to help with that, and that just brings so much joy to my heart. The thought of having a mother and a child on the streets during this time is not what we want to see in our communities. The other thing that I thought was, really uplifting and inspiring to hear is from a staff member. And this is a staff member who's an essential worker who technically we can have working in our shelter. She's our shelter supervisor, but she had 3 little kids. And I told her, I said, "Hey, we're going to find a way to give you work so that you can work from home. We're going to find a way to make your job work from home, because it's not a job that you can actually work from home." But we were able to find her things to do and kind of, find her other things to do while she is working from home. And she sent me an email the other day just telling me about how grateful she was for the fact that she was able to work from home and be there with her daughters, and be present, fully present with her daughters, because they were struggling with doing schoolwork remotely. So she has been able to help her. And one of her daughters, a project that she was working on with her daughter, she got an A on, and she was just felt like if she wasn't able to be at home with her to help her, she wouldn't have had that success. And so that was something that really touched my heart, and really speaks to why it's important that we have to make these adjustments for people, even if their job is not a technical job that can work from home. The last thing I think is just the community. The generosity of our supporters has amazed me. I wanted to launch this curbside food pickup program. I had an idea. I knew I wanted to do it. I put out a call for donations. In a matter of weeks, we were able to stock our pantry with donations from the community, cash donations, food donations from several people in the community. And that really just speaks to how important it is for the community to be a part of our mission. And I just was touched by their generosity, and that really just warms my heart that people were willing to, within a matter of 24 hours, send a check in the mail or make a donation online or drop off food at our front door, so that we can launch this program that quickly. And so those are the three kind of things that stick in my mind and in my heart that I'm extremely grateful for.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. Yeah, I what y'all have been sharing, it's just what I needed to hear. I needed to know this beautiful stuff is happening right now all around us. So thank you so much for what you're doing to make that happen. I got this one question from Leif, who's one of our church pastors, and he wanted to know, Albert, from your work in Family Promise, when you said that your volunteers have left, how many have left? How many will you need to come back? And do you think most of them will come back? I'm guessing that maybe Leif can, if you need to text anything, if I'm misreading what you wrote. I'm thinking about what our church is actually was just considering coming on board to do, which is to be one of those sheltering congregations. Is that primarily where you lost that, and that was why you had to shift to the hotel situation? So how do you see, I know churches who have been doing it for a long time with you guys sometimes lose some of the initial volunteer support and it gets harder. What are you seeing as you're thinking ahead to when churches and synagogues start hosting again?
Yeah, so what I was referring to as far as where we lost the majority of our volunteers, it's through our 90-day shelter. So the volunteers at the respective congregations and synagogues that were providing meals and sleeping over with their families. And we've lost them primarily because, again, the churches are not open, and we're not operating that program at the congregations anymore. So for the last 5 weeks, we had 5 churches that were scheduled to host us. So by the churches not being open, those volunteers have not had to physically be at a congregation to provide support. The volunteers, however, are still maintaining contact with us, whether it's through emails, phone calls, checking in. We also have been able to work closely with those congregations and those volunteers because they've been providing meals, whether it's through gift cards, monetary donation, or dropping off snacks and whatnot, or bottles of water. So we're trying to keep the volunteers engaged through that method of really reminding them that we need their support to be able to feed our families and make sure that they're eating well and whatnot. The volunteers at our day center, they're consistently showing up on their shifts, and typically we have one volunteer scheduled at any given time, Sunday through Saturday. So those volunteers we've lost, and some of that work that they were doing, whether it was taking phone calls and doing over the phone assessments with families, with potential families in our to our programs, that's work that has been falling on a couple employees, in addition to everything else that they've been doing. I think as long as we continue reminding the volunteers that, that they are an essential part of this organization. I mean, if you look at every family promise across the nation, the majority of the hands-on work is being done by volunteers. And when I think when things settle down, and we're able to be hosted again by these congregations, we'll need their support. But I think what we're doing now is maintaining communication with them, and anytime we house a family, we share those stories with them via email or social media, so that they're still part of it, because they are part of the solution. So it's that communication right now during this downtime that is really imperative to maintaining and retaining those volunteers, because we're definitely need them when congregations are able to host us again.
All right. Well, thank you for that question, Leif, and Albert, for your answer. Yeah, we're hoping. I'm a member of Family Promise Board, full disclosure, so I'll be one hoping and working to help make sure. Hopefully, we can get your good team of volunteers built back up again, and plenty of congregations. And I think our congregation will be ready to get on board when the time is right to start welcoming people back on campus. So
this is being recorded, right? I can.
This will be one of those moments where my board may want to step up and remind me who's really in charge of our church. But that's our intention at this point. So, all right. So I wanted to then the last question I had for you guys as we start to close up is how can we help you guys right now, both from the and I've already put up the websites, and Tara put up her website, so that if you're moved as a pastor, if I would say as the Spirit is leading, and you want to make a financial contribution to any of these great organizations, that you can go to these websites, and there's a link where you can donate by your credit or debit card. But what are any other ways that we can come alongside you guys right now? Anything? And I'll start with you, Tara, and then I'll go to Dave, and then to Albert. Anything we can do along with financial support to help you guys right now? Oh, sorry, Tara.
Thank you for that question. I think monetary donations are always greatly appreciated, regardless of the amount. But I think for us, in addition to that, I think we're trying to figure out ways to sustain our food pantry. That's the biggest thing that I want to keep after, because I do know food security issues are a huge issue in our community. And so that's one of my kind of goals, is making sure we can sustain this through recovery and even beyond. And so we're definitely looking for any donated foods, canned food, non-perishable foods. You can drop them off right at our front door at the YWCA Glendale and just leave them there. You can leave us a note so we know it was you. But that's our biggest kind of focus right now, until we open back up. And I think once we open back up, we're definitely going to have a need for some community service projects, anywhere from helping us with our, donation closet, where we receive clothing donations. All of that stuff has been put on hold, and we're going to have to get those things start going again. And it really takes the community and the volunteers to really help us do that. So those are some of the two easy ways that you can help, is through a food donation. You can also do an online donation as well, that could go directly to our food program. And so either of those things would definitely help our organization.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tara. Dave.
We're doing a couple of different things to try and keep things moving along financially. We've applied for the PPP program for payroll protection for our teachers. And that's still just sitting kind of in limbo, especially with everything that's been happening with Congress. They've supposedly passed something else that's moving toward getting that happen, but we haven't heard back from the place that's working with our bank on making that happen. So we don't know what's happening with that. So, and because of that, I'm not sure exactly where all of our finances are able to do with paying our teachers and that sort of thing. So financially, we can always use some support. That's always something that is helpful. We also are at a point where, as we move into summer, we have our instruments looked at and checked out to be sure that they're ready for a new school year. And I have a stack of instruments at this point that need to have a little bit of work done. So if somebody would like to adopt an instrument for this summer and say, this clarinet, I want to make sure that it's ready to use for next year, or this string instrument, I'm missing, there are five of my clarinets have had problems with the mouthpiece. So I'm needing to buy new mouthpieces. Maybe somebody wants to make that a project for themselves, to buy some clarinet mouthpieces for the kids. So those are things. And then finally, as I mentioned, one of the big challenges that we're facing is the technology. The technology is not out there for any kind of a musical group to be able to perform together. You see some choirs that are doing things, and they're having to record things individually. I'm in the process with one of the groups that I sing with to do a virtual choir thing. Well, we have to record that, and then somebody has to edit it and put all of those pieces together to make it happen. It's not something that anybody can do, whether it's a choir or an instrumental group or whatever. We can't do it right now. So it's a real opportunity for somebody to step up and create a technology that can be used for the musical community to make some of these things happen. And I'm convinced that after this, there will be a lot of people who would like to be able to do things within their community with this kind of technology if it existed. So just a word to somebody that likes to do technology to step up and make this happen, so that you would probably make a lot of money off of it eventually. At least at this point in time, a lot of us would be really grateful if you do something so that we can have something free to work with while we're trying to make it through this for our organization.
I think, yeah, somebody would make a lot of money coming up with something like that. There'd be a lot of musicians happy with that. All right, thank you, Dave, for that. Albert, how can we come alongside you right now?
There's several ways to support Family Promise and our families that are in our care. One of our biggest needs are gift cards that would allow our families to purchase meals, dinner, breakfast, lunch. I really, if that's the path that directs you to support us, I would ask that you actually purchase gift cards to local businesses, local restaurants, so we can support our local community while supporting our families with meals as well. I wish this camera was mobile, because on my front porch are about 15 or 20 boxes from Amazon, and I've been bored on the weekends and buying a lot of things that I don't need. And my point with that is, if you purchase on Amazon, go through the smile.amazon.com and choose Family Promise as one of your beneficiaries, because it all adds up and it all will help make a difference. And if you want to face the wrath of a line at Ralph's, we also accept donations. We're listed as one of the beneficiaries at Ralph's grocery stores. Listen, you can make monetary donations on our website, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Definitely great opportunities to support us through any of those avenues I've mentioned. If you know any landlords, or if you yourself are a landlord and have a vacancy at one of your apartments, please think of Family Promise. Work with us. Know that we work with these families on many different levels to make sure that they are good and respectful residents of the community that they move into. And maybe even consider hosting a virtual fundraiser on Facebook to support us. we can use it all. I mean, monetary donations are something that, you know, we're all looking for right now. And we understand that so many people are hurting right now, whether it's financially or mental, whatever it is. But think of Family Promise during your time of giving. And I'll close it by saying, you know, when I joined Family Promise 5 years ago, our board was always passionate about making sure to pray before every board meeting. Keep us in your prayers if that's what you do. And not just Family Promise, but the entire world. And any support that you can provide. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Albert. And I'm going to start to bring this to a close, but just one last thought. If there's something that either Tara, Albert, or Dave wanted to share that you didn't get the chance to share, I'll let you have your final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up our time together.
This is Tara. I'm just extremely grateful for this opportunity to be here with you all. So thank you so much, Todd, for your leadership in the community, in the faith community, and everything that you do to support nonprofits. I feel just extremely blessed to have you as my friend. So thank you for inviting me to be a part of this discussion tonight.
Thank you. That's a privilege to know.
And I just want to reinforce that as well, Todd. Thank you so much. I know that because I've connected with you and my son is a pastor, I know that at this point in time, your time is more than filled just because of all of the things that are happening. So you have a real plate full of things that you're doing right now. And I'm really grateful for all that you're doing to make things happen in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Todd and I echo the same as my partners here. Thank you for this opportunity, for this providing us this platform to not just speak about the challenges, but also share the successes, because there is a lot of great success happening in our community. And I think you allowing us to speak and share those, hopefully it's brought some smiles to some of our friends on Zoom or on Facebook.
Well, wow, I'm really glad I asked for those final thoughts. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. But you know, what I wanted to have you on because what each of you do, you know, the stories that I've heard and the people that you've impacted that I've had the privilege to meet over the years, I'm just so grateful that you're in this community doing what you're doing. I pray that one of the things that come out of this pandemic is that people recognize how crucial nonprofit work is in the city. You guys are the best people in our community, people who are giving their lives to people in need and on the margins of our community. This is God's work, and that you guys do that day in and day out. I pray that we will have at least a honeymoon period of a year or two following this where everybody is on board and making sure all your organizations thrive as we move forward, because you truly do make a huge difference in our community, and I'm grateful for you. And I'll be passing along the word to our church members about what we can do to help you right now. We're looking for those opportunities as we continue our ministry as well. So all the best to you. Please take care of yourselves. Please enjoy whatever beverage will do the best for you. I can't advocate anything specifically so I don't get in problems with any particular religious group, but please enjoy your family, enjoy the gift of quiet, and God bless all of y'all. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you without social distancing, hopefully very soon. All the best.